Hey y'all, it's Guy Penrod here, and it's the real me. It's not the AI me.
The first thing Guy Penrod felt he needed to tell people had nothing to do with his health, his music, or his family. He needed to confirm that the man on their screen was actually him. Sit with how strange that is. A voice that gospel audiences have known for 3 decades. A face that has filled arenas and church halls and living room televisions since the 90s. And he had to look into a lens and assure the people who love him that he was real. That is where things stand now. And the reason he had to do it is worth understanding fully, because what happened to him over the past several weeks reached into thousands of homes, pulled worried phone calls out of people who never worry out loud, and it is almost certainly coming for someone else you care about. For weeks, videos had been surfacing across Facebook feeds, YouTube recommendations, and shared links passed between family members, all of them centered on Guy Penrod. Some made claims about his health that stopped people mid-scroll. Others showed him in circumstances that made no sense at all, including one that had him performing at the Super Bowl. The packaging looked convincing. Real-seeming thumbnails, news-style formatting, titles built to make your stomach drop before your brain catches up. People clicked. People watched. And a great many of them believed what they saw, because they had no reason yet to imagine that a video could show a man saying words he never said. To understand why this landed so hard, you have to understand what Guy Penrod means to the people who follow him. He joined the Gaither vocal band in 1994 and spent more than a decade as one of its defining voices. The tall Texas tenor with the flowing hair who could go to his knees in the middle of a song and mean every syllable of it. He's watching over you, worthy the Lamb. I believe in a hill called Mount Calvary. Those songs became part of the furniture of faith for entire families. But it was never only the singing. Audiences trusted him. When Guy Penrod delivers a lyric, it sounds less like performance and more like a man telling you something true about his own life. 10 children. A home built around faith. A way of speaking about God that never sounded coached, because it wasn't. What people saw on stage was, by every account, the same man who sat down to supper that night. So when the videos started spreading, the people watching them were not idle strangers scrolling past. They were folks who had sat in homecoming audiences, who had raised their children and then their grandchildren on this music, who pray by name for artists they have never met. They were watching their screens with real fear in their chests, and they had no way to sort what was true from what wasn't. For a community that treats honesty as the foundation of everything, that kind of confusion is deeply unsettling. It deserved a real answer, and Guy gave one. What was circulating was not the work of over-enthusiastic fans getting a rumor wrong. These were productions built with artificial intelligence, technology that can now take a person's face, their voice, their name, and stitch together footage that looks and sounds authentic while being entirely invented. The man in those videos never spoke those words. The events never occurred. The announcements were never made. It is manufactured deception, and it is far more widespread than most people understand. For anyone who grew up in a world where film and print carried at least some expectation that a human being had checked the facts first, this technology arrives as something disorienting and new. The old barriers between truth and fabrication have shifted, and most of us have not caught up. When the person being imitated is someone whose faith is public, whose word has been reliable for 30 years, whose audience trusts him precisely because he has earned it, the theft of that trust carries its own particular sting. The concern spread the way concern spreads in this community. Phone calls, texts, emails, prayer chains, people asking one another what they had heard. The worry was real. The prayers were real. The videos were not. And then Guy Penrod did the simplest, most direct thing available to him. No publicist, no press release, no statement filtered through a management team. He sat down, turned on a camera, and talked to his people the way he would talk to a neighbor across a fence. The first thing that registers before he even finishes a sentence is how relaxed he is. This is not a man under strain. This is not someone bracing to deliver bad news. He is warm, easy, entirely himself, exactly the presence his audience has known across decades of concerts and recordings. He addressed the fake videos without dancing around them, telling his audience plainly that there had been a ridiculous amount of AI postings, and that his family made none of them. The health claims did not come from him. The Super Bowl clip did not come from him. The dramatic announcements that had people reaching for their phones in the middle of the night came from nowhere near him or anyone in his circle. Then he said the part everyone who had been carrying worry needed to hear. He told them he is doing great, his family is doing great, his health is doing great, and that he loves Jesus. 4 sentences, and the whole story is inside them. Every prayer offered up on his behalf, every quiet moment of concern carried into a Sunday service, every name added to a church prayer list, found a man who is perfectly well. Healthy, surrounded by family, his faith right where it has always sat, at the center of the whole thing. He described the rest of his life in the most beautifully ordinary language you could ask for. Bouncing grandkids, he called it. He mentioned that he had played golf that day. Something in that image ought to make you smile. The man whose voice has filled worship halls across the country spending an afternoon out on the course, then coming home to grandchildren who want to be swung up into the air. That is not a man in trouble. That is a man living a full and grateful life, sharing it without a shred of drama, which is exactly what his audience has always loved about him here. He spoke to the people who had reached out, too. He asked them not to worry, thanked them for the prayers, and told them he will always take prayers. That last line is so completely him. He isn't brushing off the concern or treating it as a nuisance. He isn't performing gratitude on camera. He is receiving something offered in love and answering with the steadiness of a man whose faith is not a costume. He didn't say he had no need of prayer. He said he would always take it, because that is how he lives. And then he drew the line as cleanly as anyone could draw it, looking straight into the camera and saying it was the real him, not the AI him. That is about as plain as language gets. This is the voice these people know. Everything else, all of it, the clips that caused the worried calls and the sleepless nights, was not him to do. Take a second to let that land. For anyone who spent days or weeks carrying real fear for this man, who lifted his name in a prayer circle or asked a family member to keep him in mind, this is the answer to those prayers. Not a dramatic recovery. Not a crisis narrowly escaped. Just a healthy, happy man who is grateful for people who care about him, living a life full of grandchildren and faith and the occasional round of golf. The relief is earned, and the warmth with which he delivered it, speaking as a person rather than a celebrity managing a situation, is entirely consistent with everything he has ever been. Here is what this community deserves to talk about honestly, though, because this problem is not going anywhere. AI-generated content is being produced faster than any of us have adjusted to, and the people most likely to be fooled by it are often the people whose concern is most sincere. When something alarming about an artist you love shows up in your feed, stop before you send it to anyone. Ask a few plain questions. Did it come from a verified account, the artist's own official page, the one with the check mark beside the name? If not, that alone is reason enough to pause. Does the person sound slightly off? AI can approximate a face and a voice, but it usually misses the rhythm and the humor and the specific warmth of the actual human being. If something feels wrong to you, that instinct is worth trusting. Can you trace the claim to anything checkable at all? A real post? A real interview? A statement from their ministry? If there is no trail, be careful, and when in doubt, go straight to the source. Guy Penrod has official pages. 30 seconds of looking can stop a wave of unnecessary fear from rolling through an entire community. This is not about becoming suspicious of everything. It is the same wisdom good people have always applied to what they read and hear, extended now to what they watch. The tools changed. The discernment required is the same discernment that has served people of faith for a very long time. Slow down, check the source, and refuse to let fear move you before you know what is actually true. Guy Penrod is far from alone in this. Fabricated videos have started appearing around a number of beloved gospel figures, artists who spent their whole careers building trust with their audiences, only to watch that trust get mined by technology they had no hand in and no power to stop. There is a reason gospel artists keep getting targeted, and it has nothing to do with the music. It is audience loyalty. The people who love this music care intensely, share quickly, and respond with their whole hearts to news about the artists who shaped their lives. That sincerity is the exact thing being exploited. The people producing this content know nothing about Southern gospel and care nothing for it. They simply identified an audience that responds, and they are feeding on that response. These are not fans making foolish mistakes. This is material engineered specifically to take advantage of people who love deeply. The encouraging part is how the community answered. Concern first, then questions, then a practical, growing awareness. Artists and their teams have posted clarifications. Fans have started checking before forwarding. The same networks that carried the fakes are now carrying warnings and corrections just as fast. That matters more than it might seem, because it means when Guy sat down and said he made none of those videos, that message could travel every bit as quickly as the lies did. The same care that led someone to share a frightening clip out of love, now pointed toward the truth, becomes something genuinely good. So here is where it all settles. Guy Penrod is well. His family is well. His faith is exactly where it has always been, out front, holding up everything else. He is bouncing grandkids and playing golf, and living like a man with nothing to prove and a great deal to be thankful for. The videos that caused all that worry were not made by him, not approved by him, and not true. Rather than letting the noise run its course, he looked into a camera and told the people who have prayed for him and filled those homecoming seats and carried his music through their hardest seasons that he is fine, that he is grateful, and that he will always take prayers. Carry a little of that discernment back into your week, into your feed, into the family group chats where things get passed along in a hurry. Give yourself a moment before you share the alarming thing. Check the verified page. Look for the source. Separate what is true from what was manufactured, because the truth, once you find it, is almost always better than the fear these fakes are built to create. And in this case, the truth could not be simpler or better. Guy Penrod is well, his family is well, and he loves Jesus. That's the real him.